my man got too familiar, and I ended up having to whip his ass, man, because, he would step across the line. Habitually, he's a habitual line stepper.
All right, Brent, send us off, but don't mess it up, okay?
All right, here we go.
Yeah, don't screw it
Nobody
up.
say anything. Here we go. Welcome to the HLS podcast. Late to the party. Ready? What? It is. Okay. To that point. Ready. Radical Teddy and Friends. I'm forgetting one of them.
I'm going to have a button that I just press and then it does it. Because you get mad at us for messing you up. And when we shut the fuck up, you mess it up. It's just destined to
I really did.
That's what I think.
It is.
Destined to be messed up.
This is
I don't think it should be properly done.
This is one of my favorite parts when I edit. Like, I enjoy having these takes inside the show. I don't like to take them out. I want people to know how all over the place we are.
Incompetent is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
Talk
I'm
about the
the lion.
and all this other stuff. But say one sentence of an introduction, impossible.
Right. Smoothly. It's a juju.
And I'm electric them.
And that's, yeah, close enough.
Mm-hmm.
We tripped and stumbled, but we got there.
Fucking failures.
Trip, stumble,
Look,
landed.
you cross the finish line, you cross the finish line. It doesn't matter if you drag yourself, you hop over, you're done.
True story.
We are in the episode now, okay?
We in there.
We're there. All right.
So what we talking about today, fellas?
We're talking about
What we getting into?
We're talking about testosterone, pumping iron, and all that other good stuff.
Jacked humanity.
Mm-hmm.
100% beef-fed manliness today. We got our baby oil today.
Yep.
We got our pecs out.
Wait. You said baby oil?
Just boys being boys.
We're not talking about what's this?
No.
Sorry.
Oh man, dude.
100 men versus
a lot of stuff. Oh, you know what? Okay, so can I talk about this 100 men versus gorilla thing? Because I think this is a pretty.
We already did.
Has a lot to do with masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this 100 men versus one gorilla thing has been. I think it's on its way out. So maybe we're late to the party, right? But
well, we already did it.
I think we didn't talk
We
about
did.
this.
We totally talked about it.
No, we talked about it in our private life. We didn't talk about this on the podcast.
We didn't? I swear we did. I swear you have a video of us talking about it.
All right, let's talk about it.
We'll find one.
Real quick. Let's get through it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So-
let's just bulldoze it.
The thing that it's not frustrating, but the thing that is flabbergasting to me is how anyone that thinks that the gorillas would actually win. Like it's absurd.
One gorilla versus 100 men, no.
It's absurd that people think that a gorilla would win. It's absurd. And the reason why is that I think that, my whole thing is I think a lot of people don't have a good concept of what violence actually looks like and what fighting and stuff looks like. I think if you talk to most people that have fighting backgrounds, they'll tell you it's ridiculous. Right. And I think the capabilities of a gorilla have been largely exaggerated. Now, gorillas, yes, can body a human being. Absolutely. But gorillas are not long distance, stamina fighters. They're not. And 100 people is a lot of damn people. It's a lot.
Especially if they think they have to fight. There's a difference of, 100 dudes, but 80 of y'all can run away if you feel like it, as opposed to all 100 of you, all 100 of you have to do this.
Mm-hmm. Gorillas don't like fighting. Gorillas will dip before they fight, and if they fight, okay, they'll fight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Listen, the first few people gonna get fucked up, really, really bad. But for people to not I don't know, man. For people to not think that 100 humans can take on one of pretty much any animal. Maybe the elephant, maybe not so much. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's absurd. And I think that people need to look at the actual
the same people that didn't want to be left in the woods with one man.
Yeah, the actual capabilities of a human and the actual capabilities of a gorilla. Humans wrestle bears. That's what humans.
This is what we said.
Yeah, not every human does it. We were talking about this in the WhatsApp group, in the college group. Humans wrestle bears. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So I think that is just I think that's a litmus test for how people view their own physical capabilities and the physical capabilities of others. But people
I mean,
need to give men a little bit more props. We will definitely F a gorilla up if there's 100 of us. Come on, y'all. Get out of here.
men are dangerous. Like, real talk, I am not afraid of a lot of things, but one of the things I am afraid of is just a random dude breaking in. Because it's like, hey, this is where I got to kill somebody.
You better get it done or else,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Right. Kids look away.
So yeah, so I mean, just let's if it hasn't been put to rest, let's just right here on the HLS podcast put to rest the 100 men versus one gorilla debate and just call it a day. Yeah, I think elephant's the only thing. The elephant's the only thing I can think of that we're like, I don't know, bro, because I think it'll just end up in a stalemate. We're like, I don't know what to do next.
Well, I also think of like all these animals in the zoo didn't get there by chance. And like, yeah, the men that did it or the people that did it had tools, but not always.
Nah, they always had
It was
tools.
invented.
Nah,
Yeah, even the Neanderthals, man. Like they had
always had
so,
tools.
yeah.
No. I'm not mean like
We're
those got the
trash.
tools. I'm talking
We
about
are
like
trash mammals. We are not good, dude. We're not good at almost anything. We're just really smart. That's it. Which is, worked well for us.
when were zoos invented? Can be traced back to 2500 BCE. The first modern zoo, though, opened in 1793. That's a massive gap.
In Europe. Get out of here. Don't get that nonsense. In Britain. Yeah. Anyway, so like, okay, so we talk about, those things. I remember I was speaking to a friend of mine, friend of the show, from the Virgo season, and and Virgo of mine, Natalie. Shout out Natalie. Shout out Jade. We were talking about, do you know what a gorilla can do? And yes, men have inflated egos, et cetera, but like I would almost bet on like, okay, let me take a step back. I think that like male masculinity has went through so many phases and changes over the last maybe, I would say probably about 4 or 5 years, but definitely in the last like 2 or 3 years, that even talking about masculinity sometimes, and I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it like makes me raise my eyebrow, because it's like, okay, well, what kind of bullshit is something about to spew, like, about it. And so when we were talking about doing this episode on masculinity, I think the first place that I wanted to start was just, how do we define masculinity, and what place does masculinity have in our lives? Now, all three of us have at least one son, right? And so we kind of touched about like, how do you teach someone how to kind of stand 10 toes down? I really applied to male or female like last episode, but like, what is masculinity and what role does masculinity have in your life? I guess I won't start first because I'm a coward. Devil, do you have a take on this?
I'm not even gonna lie. Like, honestly speaking, I view masculinity as a burden, and it's because of the trying to make sure I say this right. To me, masculinity is defined by the societal expectations of what a man is.
Correct. I think so. I agree.
I mean, I could Google it too, and I bet you
it's great when we don't Google these things.
I want to be right too, but I mean, part of that's part of being a man. But yeah, it's a burden. It's trying to live up to, all of the roles and, expectations of what a man is. And then, be comfortable within that, because there's always someone more manly than you, no matter whose definition you go by. It's like, oh, you build stuff. This dude like builds stuff. Oh, you work out. This dude lifts more. Or you're smart. This guy's smarter. So in terms of like not comparing yourself to other people and finding comfort in who you are, but also the thing that we spoke about previously of making sure that others respect your manhood is the balance that I believe at least I find to be exhausting. Because it's like, yo, I just want to chill. Like there are many times where it's like, oh, cool, there's a spider. I don't want to have to be the one to kill it. If somebody breaks in, and we talked about somebody breaking in. I remember my wife did something, And I was like, I mean, yeah, of course you think like that. Because if somebody breaks in, you're not the one that's like expected to take them on. And that was like, I don't know that she had thought about it like that. Like, oh yeah, huh. And it's like, yeah. So like on top of these things that you're, worried and stressed about, I have all of these hypotheticals that just in case I need to prepare for as the man of the house. So yeah, masculinity is, I mean, and yes, that is kind of conflating masculinity and like quote unquote the man of the house, but they are tangential, congruent, if you will. So it's a burden. Electric, what do you think?
I think masculinity comes with responsibility to protect the home, protect the family, take upon challenges without complaining. And like the more I think about it like that, I'm like, damn, it's almost as if a man is supposed to just take on everything and just be totally stoic about it,
Yep.
But that's what it is.
Which we're not.
And, got to take it on and just not complain. Just keep pushing forward every day. At least that's how I approach it.
Really interesting.
There's a lot of things that are thrown my way, and I can't just sit down, complain, and cry about it. I gotta buck up and push forward. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, like, why you don't address it?" I'm like, "For what?" There's certain things that I cannot change, so I'm not gonna worry about them. I'm just gonna move forward. I'm gonna move forward and focus on the things that I can change.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound healthy.
And that's what that's kind of what I was saying like a second ago. Like it doesn't feel like it's healthy the more I think about it.
That's really interesting because I don't view masculinity as a burden. If I'm gonna be quite honest, I don't know what the fuck masculinity is. I tell people all the time I'm the least macho person that right? When I think about like masculinity, I think of masculinity as the qualities that typically indicate your existence in a society as a man, right? If that's how I would define it, I'd probably just say it's a set of qualities and like affects that signal to people your existence in a society is as being a man, right? And I think that those definitions of masculinity change over time. But for me, masculinity just means your comfortableness in your own skin as a man. If you're comfortable in your skin as a man, and you're comfortable with who you are as a man, I think that's masculine. Period. If you, lift, 80 pounds, you're scrawny and you're like, oh, and you have like really bad allergies, but you're comfortable with who you are and you're unapologetic about who you are, I think that's manly, right? I think so often masculinity is equated to a bunch of traits that, in my opinion, all reduce down to violence. That's it. You're masculine. Well, what's going to happen if somebody breaks in? Well, then violence. Who's going to protect you when someone's trying to kill us? Violence, right? And it's like, Brent said, hypothetically, it's all these, I'm expected to do A, B, and C in the midst of all these hypotheticals that for most people literally never come to pass. Yet when we look to like femininity is like cleaning and, if we're equating it in the same way, right? Cleaning and cooking.
Actually, I disagree with that.
No, I disagree with that also. I'm just saying, like, if we're equating it in the same way, but like the traditional stereotypical way, right? I'm not saying this is what I believe, right? Then the cooking and the cleaning and all this, the homemaking, right? Those aren't hypotheticals. Like that's not hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, masculinity is just like, I feel the need to protect my family because why wouldn't I, right? And like, why wouldn't my wife protect our family? Why wouldn't, my son protect our family? But we're going to do that in the ways that we are capable of doing it, right? I would absolutely expect my son to protect my family in whatever way he can, right? Because that's what he should do. If I had a daughter, I would expect the same of her. If somebody says your dad sucks, I expect to be like, shut up. You know what I'm saying? Like, my wife protects our family through a lot of her actions
on her feelings.
It's not just like through the physical violence. And I think that's so that we've existed in this space of masculinity being paired so much to physical violence. It's like been stripped of like all of its actual meaning, because the way that what's manly in one culture is completely not manly in another, And so because it changes just over,
Well, yeah.
not only changes over time, but it changes like by region as well too. So that's what masculinity is to me. It's like how comfortable you are with, your state of being a man. And if you're comfortable as hell with it, then that's masculine to me. That's dope.
Well, wouldn't you say there's a congruence to like masculinity and being a provider? So taking care of the home to me, because we mentioned homemaking, still falls within the Venn diagram of masculinity, where it's like, even if I was single and living by myself, if I brought any lady over, and my house is a mess, she's going to see me as irresponsible and like a boy as opposed to being a man. And I don't know that that necessarily would be more of a adulthood thing versus a masculinity thing. But, I can hear the phrase in my mind like a real man would have his place taken care of,
But then
on top of
wouldn't that
all
mean
the other
woman-
responsibilities.
with the woman who's having her house taken care of and in order and neat and stuff, is she masculine?
So that's why I was asking, is it an adulthood thing or is it
That's just being responsible.
right?
And then with my definition of masculinity, I think that is masculine because you're comfortable with like, I'm an adult and I'm gonna clean up. And even though that,
Right.
being a homemaker or whatever is traditionally a female task, I don't care. My house needs to be clean. Why wouldn't I do that? And being comfortable with that, that's masculine to me. I don't,
I think cleanliness
Is it
order should be a piece to masculinity, period. If you're leading an army, you want cleanliness and order. And I would assume the same for your home.
is that a solely masculine trait?
But I feel
So what-
it is part of masculinity.
I would agree. That's part of femininity too. I think you probably would agree too. But what are some solely masculine traits?
So
Or do you even believe in that?
I know I do believe in it. I don't have the words for it because there in my past there's been people that talk to me and there's certain things that they say or how they say it. Yeah. So I think there are things to masculinity, but I don't know how to pinpoint them. Or I haven't thought about it enough yet to say this is.
You don't have
what
the
it is.
words for it. Make words up.
whoop a lubba dub dub? I would say being the provider strongly correlates to masculinity, and not in the sense that women can't provide, but the expectation from society, usually like the same way you quickly, correlated femininity to homemaking, masculinity would be to provider. It's the whole hunter-gatherer thing.
But I don't think that's BS. I wouldn't say that. Like I think that's improper. I'm just saying that because I know that we all know what I'm talking about in doing that, right? So I'm not saying.
Not to mention, there's tons of single mothers. Like, it's like, oh, I'm not calling you a man. Like, no, you just held it down for the family because that's what you had to do. So then again, it goes back to, is it masculine or is it just responsible?
Again, I think that's just responsibility. But I asked, is there any solely masculine qualities? Like if that thing there is masculine. So if a woman does it, she's exhibiting a masculine trait. And again, for
Only
simplicity,
sexually.
we are not ignoring the gender binarity or whatever. We're speaking in the binary context, not saying that it is only binary.
My silence is me trying to think of anything outside of coitus that would
Or
be
violence.
fully masculine.
Or violence.
I say
I
yes
mean-
for violence, but also at the same time, I think having restraint and self-discipline to not destroy someone that you can
It's violence.
is part of masculinity.
So then is masculinity just about violence?
Kind of sounds like it.
Right? Because I mean, I've had this conversation with lots of people, and dude, they cannot give me an example that doesn't whittle back down to violence.
When you say it that way too, it makes me think of like how women that I've spoken to, when they speak about a man, they're like, this person's very masculine. They're talking about physicality. And if someone's very masculine, being described as very masculine physically, the thought immediately goes to physical harm. he's a big, strong guy because he can
That
protect.
can protect me from an intruder or attacker.
Exactly. So
I think
not
that's
only the
problem
ability
with-
to wield violence, but to protect from violence.
Yep.
Again, I don't necessarily believe in self-defense. I don't think there's such a thing. It's like my self-defense is by using my offense. Like that's what self-defense is. Oh, he was attacking me, so I shot that person. Like that was an offensive move. It's just reciprocated. It wasn't the first one. So, even saying, oh, that violence is to protect, it's still violence.
Yeah. And also, I associate masculinity with like offensive violence as opposed to protection because, again, mothers protect.
Is that someone's talking?
Is there like
an family and somebody and your kid speaks up about it? That's protection,
right? Is there a correlation to like bestial descriptions with masculinity? And like when we think of things that are masculine, it's like the muscle flexing, the grunting, and I'm like thinking of all the like classic or entertainment tropes of what masculine is.
How about you referring to like the specific like displays of masculinity found like in the wild and stuff like that?
Right. Well,
Is that what you're talking about?
Not in the wild. I meant just in general, like when people are quote unquote exhibiting like masculine behavior, it's always this bestial. So like my first thought goes to like sports, like, oh, you did a good dunk or whatever. And like flex muscles, grind, you know what I'm saying? Beat chest, that kind of thing.
You did a good dunk.
I mean, we've seen bad dunks.
I could do a dunk. Yeah, I think that is a direct callback to like primitive and like archetypal like behavior. Like animals beat their chest, they grunt, they peacock, they scratch the floor, they snort, they rear their head and horns down. You know what I mean?
But it's funny because and I didn't think about it until you said peacock. The animals that do those behaviors are the male animals.
Yeah.
Like male peacocks show their feathers like that.
Yeah.
Males have to have the bright colors and displays and whatnot to attract females.
Male like birds, they like pop their titties out. They're like red boobs,
Right. Or female birds, just always dull colors.
Lion manes, like all that stuff, right? But again, those are rituals and stuff like that I think are largely biological, right? Because we've came up from this soup of mammals and stuff like that. But I mean, are we comparing ourselves to beasts and stuff like that? We've moved so much further past a lot of that behavior in our like current state of existence that it's funny that it's strange to me when people say we're born like this, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA. Look at the animals, they do the same thing too. I'm like, yeah, but like this is one thing that the animals do that you say like we can't escape, but we've escaped a million other things that the animals do. You know what I mean? Like the animals like eat their children sometimes. Like should I say like it's natural to like eat the children, of like my enemies? Like it's not normal. So like I think people like justifying their beliefs by using pseudoscience. And I think the burden that you speak of about masculinity comes from the inability to define it without using violence. Listen, I believe I'm a capable fighter. I believe I've proven that on a number of different occasions. I don't like fighting. I've said that before on the show. I don't want to fight nobody. You know what I'm saying? So the fear that you have of an intruder or whatever is the same as me. I'm not going to wake up like, oh, I'm going to wait for this shit my whole life. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do that. But I don't see that as a burden. I see that as like if someone's attacking you, I'm not like gonna rock, paper, scissors it. Like literally have to do it because I'm better at doing it. You know what I mean? So I think the definition is super narrow, and I think we as men need to do a better job of defining what masculinity is outside of violence, because like literally that's all I hear.
So earlier we had mentioned something. I'm trying to think of it now. Give me a second. Let me think about this. Oh, okay.
I think so. Go ahead.
Earlier I mentioned like how, masculinity sometimes like you take on situations and you just got to be stoic about it, right? So how basically I said, like we take on issues and we have to be stoic. And it was also mentioned, that sounds unhealthy. So masculinity, does that also mean like suppressing your emotions, like on how you feel about things? Because I can say like I suppress my emotions a lot. And, I don't think it's healthy, but I think as a man, I can't just let it out, like it's just, you just got to deal with it and just keep moving forward.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you, can you be vulnerable right now?
Yeah, I can. Hmm.
All right. Why, as simply as you can, or why do you feel that it's, for lack of a better word, not good to show your emotions?
Growing up, I used to show my emotions too much. If I was angry, I would let it out like right away, like my emotions were on my sleeve. But I realized that's not socially. I can't be that kind of person. People will not accept that. And
What?
it always caused issues for me. Like just me lashing out or whatever. So you just something I don't like, I just suck it up, or I find ways to get around it or move forward.
But why
Uh,
is it not acceptable?
it depends, right? So I think the way I used to manage my emotions were probably in a very bad way. I would get angry. It was more anger than anything. I don't think just walking around society being angry is gonna do anything productive for my life. That's something that I have to just stuff down real deep. Just
But
keep that
but that's
tucked away.
that that assumes that you have a binary choice. That the only emotion is anger, and if you show that anger, that's bad. So just stuff it away, as opposed to the various range of emotions you can have with stuff, right? Because
Yeah, but so
it's
go ahead.
anger, there's crying, right?
Right. That's where I was going.
There's being sensitive, there's opening up to people, right? I think when you're talking about, I mean, I imagined when you talked about just bottling emotions and keeping moving forward, I imagine you were talking about those other things as well too, or were you not?
Yeah, it's a mix of both of that. Yeah. Like bottling up your emotions, right? I had a moment a few weeks ago, right? So I just recently moved. And the reason why I moved was because of a breakup, right? So I moved out of my ex-girlfriend's house and I moved, out to be closer to my friends. And I went
Hello.
shopping. So I'm shopping, right, for my new place. And I'm thinking about like, damn, like I'm doing this again. I'm shopping for another place that I'm living at. And my whole life has been just me just moving since childhood. I probably lived in over 40 different places in my whole life, and
Goddamn.
I while I was shopping, I just stopped for a moment and I was thinking about it and I said to myself, damn, like I I'm shopping right now, but I don't feel like this place will be my home. And then I stopped and I'm like, damn, I don't feel like I'll ever be home. And for that moment, I just stopped and I said, yo, if I cry right now, fuck it, I cry, and I just stood there, but I couldn't cry. It didn't want to come out, but I was ready to. I was just like, go ahead, just let it out. If you cry, you cry. And there's people passing me by. Probably nobody knows this is going on in my head. But I'm like, just fucking do it. You just got to let it out. Just let it out. And it just wouldn't come out. So,
Yeah, I understand being stoic versus being emotional. When I was younger, I was a crybaby, and I remember praying that I would not cry so much. And I had a good 20 something years of just not crying, even in situations where I should cry, where most people would cry, nothing. I think only recently, like since I've had kids, maybe in the last 2, 3 years, I've like shed tears when natural to do so. I don't know that I see that as any less masculine as opposed to being stoic.
with
I
that,
would go ahead.
I was going to say,
No, it's, you know,
with what you just mentioned and with what I just mentioned, I don't think a man that cries makes you less masculine. I don't subscribe to that. Even when my son would cry, I'm like, yo, cry it out. It's totally fine. It depends what you're crying about. Like there are things like when life is really hard on a person, I have empathy, and just because one person has a problem that's X doesn't mean that a problem that's Y wouldn't affect someone else. Like different problems affect people differently. But if it's like, you're crying over spilled milk, it's like, yo, bro, man the fuck up, But if it's crime, you're crying because like, you lost someone you love, or, like you lost an opportunity that you worked so hard for. Get it out of your system. Go ahead, bro. Like it's totally fine. You put in that time and work or whatever, like when fighters, they lose a fight, they train for a long time and then they lose and they cry after that.
Right.
It's like, I might laugh, but I'm like, you know what? Let them get the cry out, man. Like it's not that big of a deal. But like someone that's constantly complaining about life and they're fucking crying about it, I'm like, yo, come on, bro. Like if you can't change those things,
Man up.
figure out a way. And this is when we say man up.
Yeah,
right.
But
Yeah.
if that's the case, then why are we saying that masculinity is bottling up your emotions? There's the difference between the milk spilled and I realized, you know what, it's not that big of a deal, and being fine with it and moving on, and the milk spilled, being really sad, wanting to cry, but then bottling that feeling up. Those are different things.
There's
So
some
if it's
people that
okay-
cry over everything, bro. There's some people, and when I say cry, it doesn't mean like literal tears, but
No, that's what I'm
there's
saying.
people that complain about every
That's what I'm
fucking
saying,
thing,
though.
and then don't change anything about what they're doing.
If it's okay,
And folks call that what?
I don't know.
Say
What
it.
they call it.
Say it.
I have no clue. What
Say it.
I don't know.
No clue. What you're talking
I don't
about.
know what
Folks
you're
call
saying.
it. What do
I have no
folks
clue what
call it
you're
when you
talking about.
complain about things? When you complain about things.
Oh, being a Brent.
Nah, Brent doesn't complain. That's so disrespectful.
It was wide open. I just had to take it. I was
Yeah.
You said I would have said being electric. See that's
But-
the thing. Like I don't know. It doesn't feel congruent, right? Everybody's like, oh, it's okay to do this, right? But like, then why is there a need to bottle up your emotions? Like if you're complaining about everything, right? There's a difference in complaining about stuff and then like not feeling the need to complain. Those are two different things. But when we talk about bottling up emotions, we're talking about feeling the need to doing something and then resisting the urge to do that thing. So is it masculine to not even I'm not even worried about that thing. So there's three different paths. There's bitching and complaining about something, right? There's realizing it's not that big of a deal and being fine about it. And then there's wanting to bitch and complain about it, but bottling it up so that you don't appear like you're bitching and complaining. Those are three different things. So if it's okay
Side
with
note,
people,
that's what I was saying.
yeah. So then like,
But listen.
like we should be applauding the person that learns how to deal with the pain and deal with the minor annoyances, not the bottling it up.
I've heard women say, I love a good cry. And they
I
will
love a good
particularly
cry.
watch movies.
Feels great.
I've never said I love a good cry. I've never sought out a cry.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
crying feels awesome sometimes, dude.
It's something that has to be
Feels so
pulled out
good.
of me.
No, like Electric's example was a good example. Like sometimes you really want to cry, and it's annoying when you can't because crying
Well, you know
will
it-
feel great at that moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that. I don't have that I want to cry. Crying is always something that's pulled out of me when justified. Like it has to be justified. It's never like, oh, I
Oh
just
no,
want to
it's
cry.
always justified. Like when I talk about like I want a good cry, I'm not gonna if I want a good cry, like again, I'll use the example Electric just gave. That's a justified reason to cry. Like 100%. So if he really wanted to cry and it naturally happened, then yeah, like he wanted to cry at that moment, but it didn't happen, right? So it's not like he's crying for no reason or it's like a fake cry when it happens. We're not like manufacturing a cry till we can feel good. It's like there's something in you that crying provided like some type of catharsis for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's why the cry is good, because we walk around with things that we don't even know that we have sometimes. And sometimes the right movie, the right moment, the right way that your kid might look at you 1 second might just trigger something and turn something on, and boom, you're like, oh God, where'd that come from? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's times that I'll be so stressed out and stuff like that, and I'll have so much on my back, and I don't even really realize what's going on. And because like, you know, I pushed forward a lot without dealing with emotion stuff because I get distracted easy, you know?
Right.
I get distracted. And sometimes I'm so focused on like getting to the goal that I don't give myself the proper care, attention, and love and stuff that I need on the way there. So by the time I reach the goal, I'm so beat up and bruised, and I don't even remember why, but I know I feel this way. So sometimes I like watching certain things or talking to certain people or just hanging out with my kids, because that will bring those things out and it'll provide me that release that I might need.
Well, I feel dead inside. I don't have it. Yeah. You don't know that I have that. I never said I love a good cry, which I said earlier, but it's more so I can't think of wanting to bring out emotions. Like, if you know what I mean?
Have you ever
I don't
felt better?
seek,
Sorry, go ahead.
however, I don't seek out a catalyst to trigger an emotion that I feel is pent up. Whatever emotions I have, you know, they feel secondary to whatever tasks and things I have to do. When I listen to a story, I don't necessarily care about how it made you feel. I want to know what we're doing about it. What did we learn from it? How we're going to act the next time it happens. Your emotions about it are important. Just, I guess, as a man, I feel like they are secondary.
Oh, no, I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
I think emotions, one of the things that I'm accused of a lot is having a computer brain. Beep, boop, boop, insert decision bot will make a decision, right? And I've learned over
That's a
time that
male stereotype.
I process things very quickly. And so I'm an emotional person. I have emotions. I have fear. I have, you know, anger. I have rejection. I have inferiority. I have all those things. I'm a human being, right? And all those things are present in decision making. I just know that, like, because emotions are subjective, you can't put too much weight on them, right? But they are important, and they are a important part of like my decision matrices, right? So if I make a decision, I have to put all the factors in, and emotions are emotions are always put in there as well too. It's just that they don't necessarily weigh as much. I'm not going to call emotions less important than facts. I can't do that. The reason I can't do that is we've all been in situations where, despite something being right, the way that somebody feels is actually more important to do that thing than to be right. We've all made that choice. We've all made that split before, and we've all made that split and been okay with it at one point in time.
I think every man by now has learned, when your partner is telling you a story or, you know, venting about some trial or tribulation they've had, they're not looking for a solution. They just want to vent about it. And so as the man, shut up, because you're going to think like, oh yeah, but all you had to do was this, or, well, next time, what are you going to do about it? But it's not, that's not the place. You know what I mean? And so for me, that also goes into the whole archetype about, or stereotype, whichever one is correct, about, you know, women being nurturing and consoling. Because I'm atrocious at consoling. Like, you know, my kid was sick today. And so, like, as he's vomiting, you know, the missus is rubbing his back and everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have did that. Oops. Because my first thought was, I wonder what caused this. What are we going to do differently next time? But rather than do that, I was like, oh yeah, okay. So next time he's vomiting, because, you know, when you have a stomach bug, it just keeps happening. I was like, yes, let me rub your back. There. Love you.
But you don't see that as
Hope you feel better. No. In fact, to me, it's the task. It's part of getting through this. It is important to, you know, his development and also his
Incredibly
like,
important.
and also his like recovery from this, that he feels supported.
So it sounded like you said the opposite of what you're saying. It sounded like you're saying that the emotions are always the least important thing. And I don't want to misquote you. So
No,
like what
I just said they're secondary in my mind. If you notice, my first thought was, how did this happen? How are we gonna? As
Oh, you
opposed to
said-
my wife, whose first thought was like, "Oh, poor baby," blah blah. You know, she immediately
I
went
got you.
to,
they are secondary or they should be secondary.
no, they definitely should not be secondary. I think
Okay, got it.
in
Got it.
as
I
math,
thought you said
like
I thought
as
you said
we
they should be secondary. I was like, bro.
no, no. And I
Okay.
think that's, again, approaching things from the stereotypical male mindset,
Mhm.
which is, you know, logical, you know, process, task oriented, as opposed to emotion, nurture, caring. Again, stereotypes. Not
Do you
necessarily
think-
correct, but that's,
Do-
in terms of us earlier defining masculinity, these are things that are, again, surrounded, you know, in the Venn diagram of masculinity.
or unafraid.
Yeah, but it
to
only
express
comes
your
out,
emotions?
but exactly that. The courage to be vulnerable, as opposed to just be, you know, the I don't even know how you could say it without saying like accepting. I don't want to use the word weak, but
Use it.
no, but to that point, so much of
We got our
defining
first one,
masculinity
baby.
is
I was
always,
waiting for it.
it took a minute, huh? It took a minute. So much of defining masculinity is always like synonymous, or at least including the word strong. Like, man need be strong,
Mhm.
right? And so, which is why, you know, you get these things of, oh, he has to be a provider, he needs muscles, he needs, you know, all of these things that we've said so far. But then we could also say, well, that's not solely masculine, because,
Mhm.
you know, women are strong, mothers are strong. Like, you know, we want our daughters to be strong. We want, so to your earlier point of, is there anything that's solely masculine aside from violence? When we talk about, or even if I don't know if you've ever dated anybody that, like, I remember, she was very logical and to the point, to,
You gotta give me a letter.
nope. 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 Cannot. I know our audience. So, to that point, someone else would have felt like, why are you so cold-hearted? Like, people have called this person, you know, the B word. And I think that's when people call people the B word. It's like, oh, they're a cold, heartless B. And it's like, I mean, or they just think logically first. It's not that they're heartless. It's just emotions and everything are secondary to their style of thinking. So some people would see that as, oh, she's not feminine because she doesn't care. She's not caring. She's not nurturing. Would you say that being logical first is a male trait?
No.
And would you see a man that is emotional first as feminine? Like, to that point, how do we define feminine traits in a man?
Well, you could see a man be very irate and breaking shit in the store, but you wouldn't think that's feminine energy,
Oh, that's a really good point.
right? Like, you actually would be on guard. You'd be like, all right, if this motherfucker comes my way, I'm ready to fuck
Gotta
him
be
up.
ready to do
You
a
know,
fight.
you don't look at him and be like, well, that's a lot of feminine energy. So I don't think a lot of emotion is feminine.
Well, because of the violence.
Yes, yeah.
That's
Back to Scrota's point in the beginning. Yeah. So
it
it's
always
just
goes
keeps coming back to violence. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the violence. But honestly, because of him not being able to control his emotions.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The lack of
like,
emotional control is.
But there's other people that can't control their emotions, and that has nothing and we don't perceive that as a violent threat in the slightest.
Right.
Yeah.
Who was that politician that kept crying?
I don't know why.
No,
That's
no, no,
funny
no,
to
no.
me. Who?
No, there was a dude that, like, There was a dude that
You
kept
talking about Van Jones? You talking about Van Jones?
No, there was a.
That dude.
Oh, I gotta look this
Stay
up.
crying.
Now, see, we're talking about masculinity. You said, "Who's that politician that stayed crying?" And then I bust out laughing. So it's kind of like, you know what I find so funny, right? Like,
John
I've,
Boehner.
I've always been told
John
that I'm
Boehner.
very complex in the way that I think. So part of my complexity is a lot of contradiction, right? Like, I'll see things one way, but then if the circumstances change a little bit, I can see it a different way. So, like, I'm saying, hey, like, I don't find it a bad thing if a guy cries, right? But then you mentioned this politician that's crying. I start cracking up about it. I find humor in my contradictions as well. So
Because this dude, it seemed like every minute he was crying. And
I want to know
is
who this
there
is.
John Boehner? I'm gonna send you, like, look him up. But
Oh man.
it was one of those things where it was like, okay, that was an event, but John, I don't know if that warranted the tears and like the level of tears that you're bringing. Like, this man brought funeral level tears out habitually.
Boehner and crying.
So where's right? So to that point, where is the line? Where would you say this is going from? Oh, it's, he's courageous enough to be vulnerable to, nah,
You see,
that's feminine energy right there.
I don't know, man. I have a hard time with this because if John Boehner told you to eat a dick because he thought you said he'd be in feminine energy, I'd be like, that's masculine. Go ahead and cry, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna do it, but like, if he was cool, if he was comfortable with it and stood on business about it, then that's on him.
I wouldn't expect them to because he cries so much.
I wouldn't expect him to either. But if he did, I'd be like, yo, okay, King.
But then what is that? Is that, to your point, standing on business? Is standing on business a masculine trait?
Again, I define masculinity as being comfortable in how you feel you project, like, and show in society your maleness.
What is that maleness, though?
Whatever you do. I'm a male, and so whatever I do is me existing in society as a man. Whatever I do, and if I'm comfortable with that, even if you don't like it, that's masculine to me.
Let me ask you guys something. So we have both healthy and toxic masculinity, right? We can go into toxic masculinity and probably talk for hours about it because everyone, has come across it and, it strikes a chord with a lot of people. But I want to ask, like, have you guys had like healthy versions of masculinity growing up, and like who showed it to you?
Good question. I would say growing up, my father didn't cry a lot. Now, my father probably exhibits a lot of traits that I probably wouldn't call healthy masculinity. And I think that's a product of how he was grown. My father lost his father very early. My father was in the Civil War. My father was in survival mode all his life, right? Immigrant, post-segregation, Louisiana. It was a bit of a ride for him, So I think he was in a situation. My mom as well too, where they didn't have time to figure out, like, how does this make me feel? They literally had to keep it moving. So I learned a lot of things from my dad. A lot of things about how to be a man. A lot of things probably not to do as well too, right? I think I wasn't in an environment where I was surrounded by a lot of people who were comfortable with their projections of their masculinity that would contradict, I guess, societal expectations until probably after grad school, to be honest. I've traditionally had a lot of female friends, more female friends than male friends. This is probably the only time in my life where I've actually had more close male friends than female friends. So that kind of helped soften me, I think, a lot. and reject a lot of the traditional rules of masculinity growing up. I was really small, really short, couldn't fight, do a lot of things. So I had two options. One, to be to pretend and fake it and adopt a lot of these toxic masculine traits, or say, screw it, dude, I'm cool with who I am. And that's the route I took. And I think that made me better. But it wasn't until after grad school when I started training professional martial artists and professional Muay Thai, professional MMA, UFC, and stuff like that, that I got a chance to see like what masculinity really looks like under the hood. Because my fighters were the biggest crybabies on the planet. They cried about everything. And when you talk about societal pressure to be masculine and macho and tough, these people lived that pressure. They lived it.
Right.
And when you have training camp, when you have a fight, you have a training camp that's usually about 10 weeks long. Okay. And this is 10 weeks of like, it usually starts off pretty slow and then it turns into straight up just hell after a while. And towards that last, like, maybe like 2 weeks before the fight, actually about 2 weeks before the fight, we stop all physical contact. No more. You're not getting punched anymore. You're not getting kicked anymore because we can't afford you getting like a cut or something like that. That week sucks. It sucks for everybody because everyone's trying to kill each other. And it is a very mentally draining week as well, too, because that's when you're starting like your cut process. And it's very physically demanding as well, too. I've seen a fighter of mine, which will go nameless. His kids came with him to the gym and his kids are just being kids. He lashed on these kids so hard and so inappropriately because he was just all over the place. And then he broke down so hard. And his kids were like, sorry, Dad. And they like went away and they kind of just sat down and he broke down. You know, I see these people cry so much during this time period because, you know, it's the only thing you can do when everything's kind of pressing on you that much. And I never got a chance to experience that until after grad school because these were the toughest guys in the room. These were the guys that can kick anybody's ass. But they did not apologize at all for 1 second when they showed their emotions and did things like that. So I never was really surrounded by people like that ever. But that's the best example I can think of when like it was just so antithetical to what masculinity was while at the same time being the definition of what stereotypical masculinity is. I thought it was a really cool thing to watch.
Electric?
For me, it was one of my neighbors. He's still around. His name is James. So in my mom's building, when I was a kid growing up, he lived upstairs from us, and he still lives there too. Him and my mom are still good friends, and I still talk to his daughters. He had 2 daughters. We would always go over there and play, and I would have such a blast with them. And we'd be there all freaking night. I mean, till like 2, 3 in the morning. We're in the room with the girls. Like all the other kids from the building would be there. There'd be like 8 of us hanging out till late. And he was just so great about it. I guess he figured, hey, I know where my daughters are, and this is okay for me. And like he was just totally fine with us. It was, like sometimes we'll sleep over. Like they'll pull out the what is that called? The sofa bed, and like the kids are all just knock out, and no weird shit, no Diddy shit, none of that. Like he was just a straight cool father, man. And I remember like, he would sit me down and tell me things, like, hey, you gotta be responsible, man. Like you gotta do this, man. And like he would talk to me right. I didn't have a parental figure in my life. I didn't have a father figure in my life. I had my mom, but and even that wasn't even great. But him, like, he would talk to me the right way and kind of like try to steer me in the right direction. So like for me, that was probably one of the healthiest. The second one was one of my cousins, but he's not too much older than I am, but like he kind of put my head on right as well. Like, so, between those 2 guys, those were like the healthy versions of masculinity that I experienced growing up.
That's what's up.
Yeah. How about you, Rebel?
My mom would tell me about how my dad treated her and how he was as a husband and a gentleman. So I had the fictional version of my father as filtered through my mom. And that was what first shaped, how a man is in my eyes. And My parents were divorced since I was 2, so sporadically I would get an opportunity to hang out with my father, and he exhibited so many of those qualities because he's still that person even though he wasn't with my mom. So seeing how he was, you know, it was like confirmation bias. That said, there were lessons that I'm sure he taught me that I don't necessarily remember. I don't remember a lot of our interactions. I also don't remember. I remember more the times that he said he would, be somewhere and then wasn't able to show up or didn't show up. And I remember thinking that, oh, I would never do that to my kids. So his failures also shaped my idea of what a man is. My mom got remarried. She started dating another gentleman when I was about 4. They married when I was 10. My stepfather, his swagger and like the way he carried himself also influenced who I was as a man, but more often in the way that, oh, I don't want to be like this guy, so I'm not going to do that. But also, this dude is just impressively confident for almost no reason. So I took some of that too. So the two of them, come on, you've met me.
Yeah, I can see that.
You like some of it?
Yeah, because you are one of the most confident people I've ever come in contact with.
doesn't
Man.
like
You
empathize
exude
with that.
confidence.
Yeah.
You are the real life
unearned.
life weaver.
Hey, man. You know what happens is, I said something, I was right one time, and it was like, see? And after decades of see, I've just confirmed myself. Those two figures, and then, there was this, I forget the actual name of the program, but it was this program that you essentially set up for moms, single moms especially. Here, bring your young sons to this program and we'll teach them how to be a man. And so like just rite of passage, like randomness, like at the same time teaching us like random Swahili principles and, things from mentored style, like adult black men, and then being there with the other boys whose moms all apparently felt they needed to go through this rite of passage. I'm sure some of that like influenced my idea of men, but my dad, my stepfather, and then my friends, like who, like, which I know who you were, Charles, Antamont, all of us growing up, like just learning how to become responsible. I would say that also influenced me. So
Yeah. I'm gonna tack on that because when I talked about me not being the strongest, fastest, whatever, I was in high school, where being popular and being on all this other stuff was like really important, I guess. And I kind of wanted to be those things at first. And then I really realized very quickly I wasn't any of those things. And then I realized shortly after that I didn't really want to be any of those things. And it was really good to have people, and my high school friends, they're in the server. It's Helios, Rebel, Bitch Queen. That was the crew, you know what I'm saying? And none of us really care what other people think. So when you talk about being confident in who you are and stuff like that, that was the crucible in which, like, this asshole was forged in, you know what I mean? That sounds not
we also had that high school fraternity that we were a part of.
eh.
And for me, same thing, because I
was
joined it like freshman year.
It was designed.
So-
it was to do that specific thing, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm seeing the seniors as a freshman and how they carried themselves, as gentlemen, because the whole like theme of it was to be gentlemen.
It was called the Gents.
Right.
All right, guys, 5 minutes. Let's wrap it up.
You,
So
the fuck is wrong with you? We're being vulnerable, open, like
That's my masculinity kicking in right
nah. Scared. Hold on. I'll tell you. So I want to talk about something.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Brent. Finish your thing before you were just so rudely cut off. Jeez.
So it sounds like
Buzzkill.
being a man. Well, to that point, since we were saying masculinity is a societal construct, it makes sense that, at least for me, my idea of what a man is crowdsourced and borrowed and stolen from other men that I've,
Yeah.
been influenced by.
Yeah.
I did notice, though, that you were saying earlier how these UFC fighters who had this pressure of being manly also like broke down and showed emotion, and that seemed the antithesis of the expectation of being manly. So it's like that stoicism that Electric was talking about is built into the definition of like, being manly, because it's an expectation of a man. When we say, masculinity is strong, one of the strengths that people, tack on to masculinity is being able to persevere despite your emotions. Is despite the word that we want to use? We'll see.
In the midst of, I guess it's the thing. It wasn't until they did cry that their masculinity increased to me.
Yeah,
It's when they did the opposite of what was expected.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that goes back to what I was saying. It's comfort. So I'll ask this. In TV film, I had the privilege of taking my little brother and two of his friends to prom. I chauffeured them around. I dressed up in a little chauffeur, rented a cool car, and I talked to them the whole time. And I realized that these guys, I don't know what male role models they have, right? What are is there any person in popular culture, TV, media, film, especially film, that you think, so let's go with film. What are some good representations of masculinity in film? Hey, you want to know a masculine man? You want to know a manly man? That's who it is. Who would you point at?
It's not my answer, but I just remembered I had an Action Jackson poster on my wall. And I'm like, why? I was way too young to see that movie when I had that poster. I mean, Vanity was fine as hell, so that I didn't complain. But thinking about it, Carl Weathers was randomly masculine for no reason.
So Carl Weathers?
No, that was the first thing that came to mind, is because I had.
He is manly. That's undeniably, right? But I'm talking about the prominent.
There's only one other arm in the famous Arnold Schwarzenegger high five, bicep. Yeah, and that other bicep is Carl Weathers.
You got anybody come to mind?
I mean, I would say no, because I know they're all acting out their masculinity, if they're an actor. So for me, it's same with rap.
I mean, a role, a role.
Oh, in a role?
Yeah, man. Yeah, in a
Brad Pitt in Fury.
What was so masculine about him?
So he was a leader. He also tried to. So there was a young recruit that he was pulled into the war, and he's telling this kid. I know people might be like, "Yo, what?" But for me, he was trying to show this kid, "Hey, this is what this is. This is what we're in right now. You have to adapt to your situation." He did it in a very hard way, and in a way that I probably would have handled it as well. So that's why I resonated with him so much. Then he eventually started to get to know this kid, and you can tell that he loved his troop, the people that he was with. And he was also put in a hard situation where he's in a house just after they wiped out basically the enemies that they were fighting, and they found this lady and her niece in an apartment. So they stay there to eat and everything. And then his troops come in, and they're pissed off because the new guy is sitting there eating eggs with them. And they're like, "Yo, we weren't invited." And he basically had to stand up because, it looked like they were about to start a mutiny, and he set them all straight right there. He's like, "Yo, y'all do anything to the girl, I'm going to kick your teeth in personally." Right? He's ready to take on all these guys by himself, and nobody overstepped, Well, they did overstep, but like he stayed poised. And like he fought to the end. For me, it's like I resonated with those values that he had, like die for your cause, and that's pretty much how I am. If I'm gonna die, I want to die for my cause. I don't want to die in my sleep. Brad Pitt and Fury, aka Brad Fury.
Brad Fury.
I have the TV dads, like Bill Cosby and the Cosby Show.
Bill Cosby in the
Carl-
Cosby Show. In the Cosby Show.
Yeah,
Bill
In the Cosby
right,
Show,
that's
not
what
Bill
outside.
That's
of it.
why. That's why I had
in
to
the
say
Cosby
that.
Show. No,
in the Cosby
he did it
Show.
for everyone else. Heathcliff Huxtable. Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Cliff Huxtable. Yes, yes. As the character Cliff
We
Huxtable.
watched
Yes.
the Ordinary People episode yesterday.
Man, that's part of why like Bill Cosby, like being who he was, who we found out he was so devastating.
Regular people.
Especially like growing up in a single mother, man, like these TV dads was like as close as you got most of the time. So like Carl Winslow, Reginald Vale Johnson, like the same lesson when he's teaching Eddie lessons, like, oh, okay, I'm taking notes too. So like, yeah, in terms of like that kind of thing of learning lessons, yeah. TV, man, TV dads.
My kind of go-to when it comes to masculinity, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because you guys have still not seen this movie, is Wayman from Everything Ever All at Once. The dad in that movie was, I think, the best example of masculinity that I've ever seen on TV, hands down. Because he subverted every masculinity trope, but he embodied everything that I think every single man values and says, I wish I could be like that, while at the same time being the antithesis of what you think a masculine character is. I think it was done exceptionally well. If you haven't seen the movie, you should go see it. The man won an Oscar not for nothing. So,
What movie is this?
Everything Ever All at Once.
Oh, the recent one. Okay, yeah, I need to check.
Actually, did see it.
You got Brent was trying to get me to see it. Yeah.
When did you see it?
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I saw it about a week after I invited Electric to come see it with me.
You didn't invite me?
You already saw it.
You know how many times I've seen this movie? I will see it 18 more times.
No, me and the missus watched it here.
So then, do you know what
it was one of those rare times that she stayed. Actually, I can't say she stayed.
So do you know what I'm talking about then?
Yeah, I completely know what you're talking about, and I agree. Yeah, he was
amazing.
Yeah, like that's yeah. At the same time, I grew up with. I mean, we all grew up in the time of action stars. So, like, what is masculine? And you see like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that.
It was really refreshing to see something completely different.
I mean, I still like Bruce Willis in Die Hard because the entire time he's like, I don't want to do this.
No.
Like, my favorite scene in the whole movie, a spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, is literally him in the AC duct, like, come out to the coast, we have a few laughs. It's him complaining. It's him bitching about having to do all this. And we've had this, we keep saying this, and I know it's not fair, but we keep saying bitching, and it's not proper to say bitching because of the gender, like, connotation within that. Like, even if you're going to be like, oh, well, a female dog, and it's like, well, still a female. But it's funny because I never really say bitch unless I'm talking about a dude bitching. Like
That is true. That is true. I never say bitch on
Right?
a woman.
Right? I never. Yeah, I'm always talking about a dude bitching. I never call a female or a woman.
But you kind of still are, though.
Exactly, and that's the issue.
Kind of still are.
So I try not to say that anymore, and instead just say complaining, because that's really what I'm talking about. I'm like, why are you complaining?
I'm gonna squeeze this in real quick. When I went to Japan, okay, I went to Japan and I was explaining this to a friend of mine who we were talking about like gender. He's like, gender is what you're born. They're like, dude, it's not that difficult to understand, right? I went to Japan and I said in America, if somebody's acting like a little bitch, right? And then usually what that really means, they're acting like a girl or what a woman would act like, because they're being too feminine, right? And there's a set of characteristics that we don't associate with men, we associate it with women. And if you embody too many of those things, they'll say you're acting like a woman, you're throwing like a girl, you'll hear those kind of things that are leveled as insults, right?
Mhm.
But I went to Japan and I'm married, right? So I have no, I'm at the club with a bunch of my friends and stuff like that. And they were fighters. They were fighting the next day. So they went home. And I was out. I'm like, I'm not fighting. I'm still staying out. So I was out and I met this black dude. He was a professional football player from some club in England. He's a black dude. And
Wait, football is American football or soccer?
soccer. And I met him and a couple of his friends, right? And some of his friends, they just met him not too long ago. They were from overseas. And they were like, hey, can you wingman for me if you're married? I was like, yeah, sure, I'm down, whatever, cool. So we were around there, we're talking to these Japanese women. And I think I'm a pretty charming guy. I think I know how to maintain someone's interest, at least like literal interest, right? And as a wingman, that's the secret. You don't want to woo them. You don't want to get them to like you. You want to literally just entertain them while your friend does it with the thing he needs to do. That's the secret. Just entertain.
You are great at it, by the way.
Thank you. And I just wasn't doing it right. I was like, dude, like, what's going on? And then the black soccer player, he's like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're being like cool and funny and like suave and stuff. You can't do that. That doesn't work. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, when you do that, that's actually like feminine. And they look at you like, oh, you're one of their best friends. They're not looking at you like sexy. I was like, what do they like? And he was like, again, not speak for all Japanese people, he probably was too, but he was like, yeah, like here, what's attractive to people are some you listed a set of qualities. I was like, that seems very backwards, right? Yeah, being goofy, being silly, being unafraid to like look stupid, and like it's like, when the people, they hit themselves on the head like, oh, that's like hilarious and like attractive when a guy can do that. And then you have the other side, you have like the glam rock where the guys like put makeup on and they're like super well like primmed and proper and dressed and stuff. And I was like, dude, that's like, we call those like, people make fun of people like that. And he's like, yeah.
Right.
And so he told that to his friends, and then his friends decided to try it and they were much more successful. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because this definition of masculinity is not ubiquitous. It changes from place to place. And what you would consider being male in one place is not, or manly in one place, is not at all the same the other. But it's a costume you put on. I'm gonna put on my American manly costume and project manliness to be perceived as a man here. But when I wear that same manliness costume, people think I'm acting feminine in Japan. It's crazy.
Wonder if there's a similar thing in Korea, and that's why like so many of these K-pop stars are so androgynous.
Bro, absolutely.
Good to know.
All right, we're at an hour and a half, guys.
You know what though? We keep talking about masculinity and like, what is, what isn't, and then as you were talking about like femininity, and then throw like a girl and whatnot. But the one thing I think we haven't talked about is the antithesis of that in terms of what's masculine, and then quote unquote the girly girl, because there's also non-girly girls. And are they masculine if they're not a girly girl?
We'll save that for next week's episode, where the three of us tackle femininity.
Oh no,
all by ourselves.
Ray, we're gonna be canceling.
Well, really, that'll be the last.
I have a lot of opinions on this, and I want to set the record straight once and for all. So tune in next week, where Electric tells you all about what it is to be feminine.
How be one?
Oh my god, I'm the worst person to All right. Well, thank y'all
All
for
right.
listening. We hope that you enjoyed our take on masculinity. We wanted to give you something a little bit different, try to steer the conversation. And I think we bleeded out our hearts a little bit here today, too. So I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. Say again?
Being
Yep.
vulnerable is
Not gonna lie.
good, man. It's healthy.
Yeah, we were being
Sinners
masculine.
made me cry.
Yeah.
We were being masculine. Never mind.
Masculine.
It's just masculine, bro.
Where men
Vulnerably masculine.
heights.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, they call me masculation, Jason.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. And there's so
Because
many aspects of this that we
emasculation,
didn't talk about,
Jason.
though.
Emasculation, Jason.
All right, sign us out, Brent.
You've been listening to the HLS podcast, Late to the Party, To That Point, Radical Teddy and Friends, Name Pending. I'm the Rebel Alliance.
I'm Scrollwolo.
And this is Electric Thunder. Thank y'all for listening.
Thank you for listening. And
Oh, y'all
like he said,
you're all
give us
doing
your
it in
feedback.
unison.
No, I mean, we weren't. I want to know how other people define masculinity and the things that we didn't touch on, because there's a lot we didn't touch on, like
You can't do
homosexuality and
You
masculinity. Like,
You-
oh my gosh,
You
but that's
can't
my
do that.
point. There's so
No.
much. We're gonna have to start having the follow through, the throwbacks, where it's like, hey, throwback to this episode, because
You can't do that after you